And we'll move on to our next presentation now. I really love the title of that one. Is it controversial to protect privacy by violating privacy? I would say yes, but how controversial and how this controversy, can be solved. This will be, this will be told by Istvan Lam. He is the CEO of Tresit. It's great to have you here, Istvan, today. I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you. And I'll talk about this controversial story. It's a case study where we went through as a vendor creating a feature, and well, I'll tell you, spoiler alert, we don't violate privacy at the end of the day, but there was a long thought process, which I would like to share with you. But before, let me introduce myself. I'm passionate about cryptography and started learning when I was 12 about it, or heard the first time when I got a book about Asian ciphers like Skytel. And that curiosity was with me until I got to university. And I started learning cryptography. I wrote my thesis on this, then, which later served as the basis for Tresorit, which we founded with some of my colleagues there. Now I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tresorit, which is an end-to-end encrypted solution provider. And what we mean by that end-to-end encrypted provider, we are encrypting everything to know nothing. That's a good summary what we do. Mainly focusing on business customers. We have big organization, banks and international organizations, and we also have smaller ones. And what they are looking for is a tool to hide their information from, or protect their information while it's in the cloud. And from the very beginning, when we founded Tresorit, privacy was an important value, and we think it's a human right. That is there, and we always wanted to build Tresorit in a way that it helps even protecting privacy beyond just business confidential information. And we are giving an enterprise-grade secrecy, but at the same time, we are giving consumer-grade simplicity. And what do we mean by that? That, okay, we great tools to encrypt stuff, but if it's hard to use, then the end user won't use it, and then we will end up securing nothing because the end user will refuse using it. So that's a short summary about us, and a little bit about end-to-end encryption. It's beyond at-rest encryption and beyond the intrinsic encryption, because when it comes to sending a file to one user, sender, the data is encrypted on the machine of the sender, and it stays encrypted all the way, not all the servers in the cloud, and only decrypted by the recipient's machine. So that's a bedrock. This was the founding elements of Tresorit, the end-to-end encryption. And because of its ease of use, people started using for delivering information outside of the company excellently. And because our tool was great, the tool to replace email encryption, which requires installation on the other side, and it was easy to use by the other side. And the customers started asking for more protection when the information is at the recipient side. They understood and they valued that there is no points where we or someone else could get access, only the recipient. But what does the recipient do with the data is important. And here's some feedback. One is that, okay, it's great that you have this, but can I view, can I see who viewed and downloaded the content? There was another case when the customer was, okay, well, I actually sent the link to the wrong person. That data, I haven't, I made a mistake. It's how can I revoke? Okay, that's there is a way to revoke, but how can I be sure that person during that link was in the possession of that user didn't do anything bad with the data, or what was the exposure of that? So how can I be sure that the data I accidentally shared is not in complete breach? So it's sort of breach analysis in this case, because it's a little breach. And there are many other cases when customers wanted to know how the recipients of the data is consuming that. So we came up with a feature, advanced link and document tracking, which is part of our bigger package called Trezor Content Shield. But the point is, it gives a detailed access log about the recipients. Gives you who opens, who downloaded, viewed, or saved to Trezor. And that data is available. So how it works, basically the end user, tick on a box that, okay, I want to see that after I send this file, I want to see the view data. And this itself is extremely hard to do on our side, because the viewer will actually, and we need to create it in the browser so that the user can, and we need to render the documents on a way that we never get access to that. So it's an end-to-end encrypted environment. We managed to do this, and which is a great thing. I'll not talk about in this presentation, but I just wanted to mention this is not a simple thing to implement. So we did this, and basically what happens if there are files, then you can get to the access log, and you can see that, okay, who access that, and you can see a little icon and view the documents. Again, you can go even further. You can see that, okay, that particular user who was not identified, but we know their IP address, they viewed the pages, the first 5 pages, spent roughly 20 seconds with the document, didn't see the pages beyond the 6th page, and you can see the detailed how much time was spent on each page. So then you can conclude that, okay, it might not be seen, not be a big breach, because the juicy parts of the document is starting from the 6th page or 7th page. And that can be used when you are doing your analysis. But it's also that you can see an overview, okay, how my presentation has been consumed over time, and also the admin can decide, okay, certain information is logged and certain information accessed on one way or the other. But what happens, is that was our instinctive alarm, started buzzing in our head that, okay, wait a second, we are privacy advocates. We always were, and and we are giving end-to-end encryption, so that we are fighting for, giving the strongest encryption to protect the consent of the user, and now we are, monitoring mouse movements, how the recipients are doing with the data while it's consumed. How can we do this? Because for us, the contents of the user was always sacred. That, okay, we don't know what is being shared, we don't know how it's being shared, but and now we are having a technology out there that can monitor a lot of things what a user do. Still don't know what is the content, but know how they interact. And that was the dilemma, or not the dilemma, it was a question rather we raised, okay, what about our for privacy first approach? Do we violate that? Do we violate that providing such an insights with that? And this is what we asked about this feature. So when we started looking at this, what is the legal basis? What can be the legal basis for this type of data collection, which might view this as quite intrusive? One was it, okay, we are a processor and not controller in this relation. So there is a controller who has a truly confidential information to be shared externally. This can be a private data, but it can be business confidential data, like a pharma company sharing their own latest recipe for medicine, but it's also can be other things. And then we were looking at, okay, what can be the legal basis? Obviously, clear and explicit consent, but I believe that and we should go further. So it's not just collecting consent, because that might be other ways as well. Then we were looking into that, okay, the controller has some compliance requirements, which may come from laws or contracts, and we can derive the needs and the necessity to have such monitoring from those contracts. It can be explicitly said that the controller needs to do, and so there are some special cases when it is there, and there are some implicit requirements where the controller needs to face to do some corrective or preventive actions, and for that they need data. Again, I would like to reverse. There was a breach and accidentally shared something, and I want to show what is the exposure, what is what happened with the data when it was there without the revocation. And then that is true for confidential information, so in a broader concept, but we have something called GDPR, as you might know, but there are some accountability requirements which can be derived from that. That was our thinking, that, okay, when you are mitigating a breach, and you are in breach, so that it's happening right now, you need to have data. You need to have data to know what's going on and mitigate it. And it's also that when you are analyzing, so the breach is done, you're over, you need to analyze the scope and extent of the breach. So with what you can do, I mean, for instance, you accidentally shared an information where the private individuals might be harmed, might be in a bad situation. So you need to notify those private individuals that, okay, I accidentally shared. Sorry for that, but you need to know that this you can do this and that to mitigate the step, or other things. But it's at least this is under your control. And what we are also doing is fraud prevention. Okay, that's looking at the data, the real-time data, to block suspicious activity. Someone is reading 10,000 pages in the DD room, due diligence room, might raise the suspicion it's a robot rather than a human being, especially if it's done in 1 hour. So with this, you can prevent intentional data leakage from the sender side, so inside the work, but it's also preventing the hack, preventing what happens with the recipient side. It is important, especially when it comes to enterprises, and they are contracting and working with small firms, that the enterprise is facing with higher standards. They need to make sure that even something goes bad at those firm, the enterprise can still live up to the standards where they need to. So they can detect the misuse, intentional or accidental, on the recipient. So then you can act based on the data. So that was the collection of the basis. Where how can we justify to use deep analysis on the data on behalf of the controller? But here comes the problem, and there are many types of controllers. And when it comes to the controller, what is the overall purpose of collecting this behavior on the page when it comes to the recipients? What is there? There are some easy to justify purposes and contexts. We call good faith controllers. For instance, one of our customers is doing payroll. They're doing payroll for many companies, and all the payroll data is collected and shared through Trezor. And when it comes to monitoring access to that information, the payroll information, then well, it's quite easy to justify. I mean, the thoughts what I went through. Then on the share, there is another company. They are doing big investments in private and public assets, and they are sending out analysis or some data to their experts to give advice. Should they invest or should they not? And how that external advisors are using that data. And there are some bad faith controllers. I mean, some may use the tool for sending unsolicited marketing materials. And so the challenge that here, that the context and the purpose is set by the controller. And the context and the purpose makes a huge difference in this together with our philosophy. I mean, we are not talking anymore just legal, but it's also that sort of brand and value and also ethical questions. We are giving a general solution, not a specific solution, and the users can sign up on an automatic way. There might be a fake. We see many fake and stolen credit cards being used to sign up. So what happens with them? I mean, they are giving a purpose, they are giving something to us, but at the end of the day, we are not talking to the customer because they're coming from the internet. On the other side, and we have many, even if we have one company to contract with, they have many users, many use cases, different use cases. When we document this with the data processing agreement, obviously the purpose is there, but it's documented on a level, on an abstraction, which covers all use cases, but not necessarily to determine the full context of that. And in some cases, the controller has the legit interest not to share the entire and full context with us. Plus, I mean, we're end-to-end encrypted, so we cannot see the actual content. And that's a problem. So our solution for this problem was that, okay, we pre-qualify and do some mini KYC on our customers. We are enabling this feature, this advanced tracking manually after this. Then what we said, okay, we give a framework to controllers, the good faith controllers, to follow the law, follow the regulations. First, we collect explicit consent, so and they cannot opt out from this. They cannot configure the system not collecting. Then we are minimizing and aggregating the data so that we don't collect everything, even if they wanted to. And we are doing a retention automatically, so that we delete the data after a time. And in the future, the admins will be able to even fine tune which user can use which type of features. So for instance, interns cannot use this advanced tracking, but partners at the firm can use this. And it's also when it escalation, the question, what if we detect the misusage and how to detect it? And what we did, we actually started putting an report abuse icon on the recipient's side. And we need to take down some of our users because they are using, not with this particular feature, but with other features, misusing our service. But what if, I mean, usually we ban them and there's usually they are fake accounts. It turns out to be fake accounts, so then end of story. But what if the controller insists that we need to provide the feature. And what if we ban when they say no, legal actions, you need to do what we are telling you to do. We haven't found a good answer to that, but what we say, okay, if we start seeing a misuse, we will ban the usage. And so the point is we try to find the right balance and control and privacy of the receiver as well. So my conclusions are here that we believe that giving full control into our customers is fundamental, and that's what we do, and we keep doing this, even though that we know that the tools might be used in the wrong way, and we did an assessment, we did on our own, and what we try to do and or responsible to do that we minimize the misuse, try to do some KYC, and provide some framework to use TreasRate and the services on a legit way. But at the end of the day, our customers, the controller, is the responsible for their actions, and that's what our conclusion at the end of the day was that okay, it's their tool. We try to minimize the risk, but it's at the end of the day, it's their responsibility. Thank you, and I'm ready for questions.
Thank you so much. I think the last slide of your presentation really put a spotlight on on the issue who's responsible, and even if you're not responsible, like in the controller sense of the data protection framework, what you can do as a company to make the data processing as secure and legitimate as you possibly can. And maybe because we have time for a short question, and one actually reached me because during your presentation you shed some light about the conflict of using more data or collecting more data for basically security purposes and building a good service, but data protection on the other hand. And do you think there is an inherent conflict between data protection and security, or do you see a way to align those two?
I think again, it comes, so that our conclusion, what it comes down to the context, so that the context of how and what is the purpose there are ways where it's easy to justify, so that when you are protecting payroll data, when you are protecting business confidential information, so not even private information, then it is justified that you are invading or intruding some privacy in order to protect it. Something like put cameras next to the cabinets where you store the files, so that simply because you want the people who are working with that data as part of their job, they don't do something bad with that. That was our conclusion, that okay, that's doable, but then there are cases when it's not right, and then how to prevent those cases, how not to assist to those cases, even though that they can, with consent and all this stuff, they can cover themselves, but we not necessarily want to be part of those stories.
I understand. And maybe one additional question. We have been talking quite a lot about end-to-end encryption, or encryption per se, especially since summer last year in the context of international transfers. Do you see a higher demand in encryption, especially end-to-end encryption?
Yes, especially, I mean, it's being better understood. What is the difference? And that this technology is, thanks to some consumer brands, has been, advertised, and being understood by the people, and by that, and it's also that some regulations started to look on end-to-end encryption in a different way. There are cases which, that were discussions that end-to-end encryption, when information is end-to-end encrypted, it shouldn't be viewed as private information, because from Trezor perspective, we cannot use the data for identifying a person. So then when the data is on our side, from our perspective, it's just gibberish. It's not private data. So if there is a breach on our side, it might not be a breach on the customer side. This is our sort of interpretation, but this sort of discussion started, and this also increases the interest in end-to-end encryption.
I think that is a very important distinction that has to be made. So thank you so much, Jason, for clearing all those aspects up, and for your interesting presentation. I hope, and I'm convinced our audience enjoyed this as much as I did. If you have some time, please stay on the platform a bit longer if there are additional questions. So, but for the moment, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.